Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the postmortem of the 2025 United Kingdom local elections results. We had quite a few results. We still do have some to come. 94% in. There's a few councils that haven't been called. None of them should be particularly close, but it will be a little bit hard to judge the exact number of counselors after this, but we know who won. It wasn't particularly close. And I feel like we can analyze most of the implications of it. So this isn't everything. I don't know why this website hasn't updated with results from every council. I guess maybe some of them don't report by district, but this is a good indicator of about how the results went. So you see a few splashes of Liberal Democrat, some Conservative, but for the most part, Reform swept. This includes a lot of by-elections, and Reform swept across by-elections. They swept across the councils. This was the 2021 results. I will mention that one, this also includes this is a mishmash of the 2020 elections, which was delayed since May 2020. Not exactly the best time to hold an election. Wisconsin did it, but even so, that took like 2 weeks to get the results from. Um, but they delayed that until 2021. So this includes the 2024 and 2025 results, and then also some 2026 because they delayed quite a few elections. I'm not exactly sure what the allow for reorganization of local government structure. So so true. Um, it, they literally just did that because here's the 2021 results. Here's the 2025 results. like I think if I'm not mistaken, how this election went in was you had a few councils that um I think one, two, three no party control, which even so um Gloucestershire Conservatives had that they lost that in by-elections. Cornwall, once again, they had that they lost that in by-elections. Northumberland, they had that they lost that in by-elections. But for the most part, what happened in this election is where the councils, there was no overall control. One party took control. Oxfordshire, Cambridgeshire, it was the New Democrats, and Durham, it was Reform. And in a lot of these councils, like here, Lincolnshire, Conservatives. Oh, it doesn't show me results. It just shows me uh, tabs. Lovely. Uh, browse all. Where was I? Lincolnshire. Here. Here, yeah, here. Um, Conservatives started off with 54 councillors on the Lincolnshire County Council. They emerged with 14. Actually, I don't even need this because it shows it here. Um, in other places, like, well, we'll do Cornwall because this one was kind of shocking to me. Conservatives began with 47 and they ended the night with 7. What? What? You end the night with 7? And that's just exemplary of how this entire night went. They were at like actually I'm not sure exactly. They went in with they don't show how many counselors they had before. I wonder why, because the conservatives got obliterated. They went in with like 1,150 counselors. Um they're probably gonna end up with like 300, maybe 310, 312. While I've been recording this, Northamptonshire has reported their final council seats. Um, Reform UK has gotten a majority here. I predicted that. This is from a little bit ago. Um, while Buckinghamshire Conservatives have lost it, no party will get a majority here. We have one more out of West Northamptonshire, we're still awaiting results, quote unquote. Um, to control West Northamptonshire, you need 38 seats. Reform is at 24. I mean, they need 14 more. It could be hard. I think I have it as I have it as no overall control. Um, at this point, it's 25 are not reformed to 24 that are reformed. It's going to be close. If reform picks up there, that's an insane result. Um, but this is the map of them. The lean color is you have the plurality of seats on the council, but you don't fully control it. And then safe is you control council. So Liberal Democrats control 3 councils. Reform now controls, what is that, 9, and they have a potential 10th coming based on how these remaining seats go. While the Liberal Democrats make up a plurality in 4 councils, Reform in 5, and Conservatives in 2. The one council that Labor controlled, Doncaster, uh, wasn't particularly close. They went from, what is that, 40 out of 55 seats. Now they're at 12. Reform UK is almost at 40, so yeah. And that's also kind of how the night went for Labor. Labor has been bleeding a lot on both sides. Labor has lost quite a few voters to Conservatives and especially Reform UK. You've seen a lot of these results, like here. This is not a conservative area. This idea that, like, oh yes, you can sum up the election by Labor voters going to Conservative, Conservative voters going to Reform. That's not what it is. Like, Conservatives can just trade their entire base to Reform, but no, we got half the Labor voters. That's retarded. That's retarded. Don't listen to anyone who tells you that. These are almost all Labor seats. You also have Labor seats across the board, and you can see most of them flipped for Reform. If you look at these here, these white are seats that didn't flip. There's almost no seats that Labor held between these elections. Like, almost all of them. They flipped a few, but that's mostly because 2021 Conservatives were on top of the world. They had everything they could ever dream of. Like Northumberland, where they flipped seats, they still went down by 12. Like, they also flipped seats in Durham. Oh, wow! They went down by 38. Like, congrats! You went from it looks like the largest party on the council. Yeah, the largest party on the council to 4 seats. Same thing with Conservatives, 16-1. Um, but the story of this night is Labour lost a shit ton of voters to Reform UK. There's a lot of voters who voted for Labour even in 2021 because the choice in 2021 was Conservative Labour or Liberal Democrat. And there were a lot of populist inclined voters who weren't going to vote for the Conservatives, even if Boris Johnson was incredibly popular. So they ended up voting for Labour. This time around, they flipped to Reform UK. But it's not all just like, oh, yes, yeah, if Reform was a party in 2021, they would have totally voted for Reform. No, it's just new voters. Reform is picking off more and more of Labor's traditional working class base. Like, Reform might not be the best run party. They might not have the greatest leader, who's a fighter for the working class. But Reform UK has become a populist party. They are absorbing almost all the populist voters. You can see this, like the 2024 results. I wanted to show this later for shock factor, but like, look here. Wow, look at all this red. Now here, wow, it's Reform now. Story of the night, but like, this is a very working class area, even the Manchester area, and I wonder when we'll get to something else. Even the central England area, it's pretty fertile ground for reform because you have a lot of voters who voted for Labour in 2024 specifically because they were upset with Conservatives. Reform even caused some of these. Like, you can't tell me that Liz Truss lost. Oh, yeah, Liz Truss lost to someone with a 26 plurality with Reform at 22. By the way, I don't regret that. I'm not going to be like, oh my God, look, Liz Truss is out of office. Oh no, Reform is so bad. Like, I don't care. I don't give a fuck. But like, reform split the vote in a lot of these places. So just them being ahead of conservatives nationally, and like they're projected to get 30% nationally. Conservatives are projected to get 15%. Like, I, I mean, there's a little bit of a difference between these two. But just them being ahead of conservatives would win them seats like Southwest Norfolk. Uh, I'm not. It's mostly not this type of thing, but like a lot of these seats, Eastern England, this area, like the ring around London, besides for some of these Liberal Democrat areas, because the Liberal Democrats are kind of their own thing, and I don't really think they'd lose too many seats, especially since they've gone up in the polls. Um, they've held at 17%, but holding at 17% when reform has gone from 2% to 30% is a pretty good result. Like, even the Greens fell by 2%. Like, they gained seats in this class. Wow. I wonder how they were at let's move back to 2021. Um uh, they were they won 151 seats. Oh, they went up. Congrats. They didn't even have a projected vote share. They were that irrelevant. Um yeah, they didn't have a projected vote share again. No one cares about the Greens. No one cares about the Greens. Oh, they went to 12%, and then they fell. Oh 07. But that's the story of this night. You've had a massive, massive amount of labor voters flock to reform, and like in certain places, honestly, conservatives did better than expected. Like in this area over, or I'm looking for where I was here. I thought these went to reform. I don't know. Maybe I was drunk last night, but in certain areas like here, these seats were expected to be close. Some of them expected to flip to reform, and conservatives overperformed the polls. They did better here, and in a lot of places they overperformed the polls. And by polls, I mean one projection site that I used that was overly reform biased. Because every other projection site was also retarded. But legitimately, that I'm using the wrong type. Here, yeah, see, like reform was supposed to pick off a few of these, like here, Hertfordshire, Waltham Cross. I think they were supposed to pick off that one. Hoddesdon North. Like they did underperform in some areas, but for the most part, by and large, they overperformed partially because Labor significantly underperformed. And those voters that are switching away from Labor, they're not going to the Conservatives. They're going straight to Reform. It's like when gas goes straight to a solid or solid goes straight to a gas. People are like, oh no, it must have gone to liquid. Like no, scientific. The This is not scientific at all. None of this makes sense. Politics is complete fucking bullshit. But they're not taking the mediary step of being conservative, because when you want to align it on an axis, like, oh yes, reform is far right, the Greens are far left, and everyone in between is a centrist party, then you're just gonna like, that makes no sense. Like, oh yes, conservatives are slightly more towards reform than towards Labor, and the Liberal Democrats are slightly more towards the Greens than towards Labor. Like, you can't arrange it that neatly. Politics is not just like, oh, yeah, you shift to the left. Oh, well, you've reached the new tier, which is supporting Liberal Democrats. Congrats. Next, hopefully, you'll be upgraded to supporting the Greens, or maybe you'll be downgraded back down to supporting Labor. That's not how politics works, because a lot of these people who voted Labor, they voted Labor because Labor was, to some extent, a working class party. Think of this like Mahoning County, and we're gonna get to another one that's kind of like Mahoning County. Um, but like, uh, it's it's a county that voted for Democrats for as long as you could possibly remember politics, because Democrats were, to some extent, a working class party, but mostly Republicans weren't. And instead of the conservatives becoming a working class party, to some extent they did. They were able to flip back a lot, or flip a lot of these seats in 2019. Obviously, Labor flipped them back in 2024. But they really they didn't really become a populist party in full. I'm not saying that Republicans are purely for the people. Because there's a lot of Republicans who aren't, but the brand of Republicans is populism. Conservatives were not able to retain that brand. So what happened is a lot of reforms gains in 2024 were partially from the conservatives. They were seen as splitting the vote from the conservatives or a protest vote against conservatives, but they've positioned themselves now. And if they were just a protest vote against the conservatives, their best case is like they just completely eat up all the conservative support and then you have a two-party system. But that's not happening. And Reform has positioned themselves now as a more working class party. They always did, but they've been brandishing that more. And I think the biggest show than the most important result from tonight. And I could go through the mayor elections like, oh my God, look, Reform flipped two mayorships. They were widely expected to flip these. Conservatives flipped the mayorship. They were widely expected to flip this one. The incumbent retired because the system was changed and he wouldn't have won re-election. Oh my God, Labor held three. Like these two were completely expected, but both of these two were under a point. What? I thought there'd be a landslide. Maybe I didn't analyze it that well, but like these at least you should have said, "Oh, yes, Labor would win these by 5." But they were under a point. And then something like Greater Lincolnshire, Andrea Jenkins wins here by 16%. What? What? She wins here by 30% over Labor. It, it doesn't make sense. Um, I just think reform found the glitch to winning elections. Here was kind of another surprise out of west of England. Um, Reform UK got second. I think this, to some extent, Labour's losing a lot of voters to the Greens and the Liberal Democrats, but like for the most part, I think that's in a way that'll screw them over. Like if the Greens and Liberal Democrats cannot win here, like yeah, they'll win some councils. Uh, here, um, they'll win some councils. Congrats. You'll win some seats on some councils. You'll even win some seats. Like the Greens, their caucus is currently at 4, if I'm not mistaken. Like they'll expand that next election, whenever that is, which probably is 2029. I don't see why Labor would call an election when they're down in the polls. Like they might expand it to like 9 or 10. Wow, but for the most part, Greens and in a lot of these seats, Liberal Democrats are a spoiler party, and like up north, like if you live in Tynemouth, or just to pick a random riding, Runcorn and Helsby. Like when you vote for a liberal Democrat, you're not voting for them because they can win. You're voting for them as a protest vote. When you vote for a Green candidate, in, another random riding, Northeast Somerset and Haddam, you're not voting for them because they can win. You're voting for them as a protest vote. And we've seen, especially with results like this, where the Greens and the Liberal Democrats put everything they could into west of England, because especially the Greens, because this was a potential flip. They were projected to flip this in some projections, and they still lost. And it wasn't particularly close. And Reform UK, who really wasn't expected to get close here, they really weren't that close in the polls, ended up within 3 of winning here, while the Greens were all the way stuck down at 5% away from winning. Like, they're not a serious party. Mostly the Greens. Like, they can do okay, but like, even so, they tried to portray themselves like, oh yes, why are we not getting so much coverage? Reform UK is getting so much coverage, but we're not. Reform got 14%. You got 7. Like, even here. Rather favorable projections. You got 11% nationally here, supposedly. Reform got 30. Like if you crunch these numbers, 30% for Reform. And that's another thing. Liberal Democrats ahead of Labor, not just in the seat count that was kind of expected. It was rather close between them in 2021. It's not a favorable seat count or seat map for Labor, and it's a favorable map for Liberal Democrats. But like nationally, the Liberal Democrats are now ahead of Labor. Like, what an insane turnaround! But the Greens, unserious party. Um, Though I do think the Liberal Democrats will have their moment. Even the Liberal Democrats were closely behind Reform in 2024. They got a pretty solid fourth in the popular vote and a very, very solid third in the seat count. Like, this we are at the dawn of a potentially three-way election, because what I think after this, Kemi Badenoch gets the boot. She's replaced by someone else. Like, she has been a complete failure for the Conservative Party. Like, what a pathetic leader she has been. Wait, why did it go down? What? It wasn't at 94 when I started this video. Okay, she's been a pathetic leader for conservatives, so I think she's out. She was told behind the scenes if she couldn't win this, which like was the easiest layup ever. Just don't lose 600 seats. Oh, what's that? You lost 700? Oh, so much better. What an easy election to win over Reform UK. It's not even going to be close. Like, Reform's at 659, Conservatives are going to be like 320. Like, Conservatives were projected to win this a month ago. What? I just don't get it. My mind has been completely melted. It just it doesn't make it make sense. What? But if conservatives don't boot her, they die as a party. But I think they boot her. They get a surge from that. Labor and Liberal Democrats are going to be around the same, but I do think Labor will take back the lead. Labor is going to try to include more of these youth voters, progressives, the Gaza crowd, the trans, the kids crowd. Like, they're going to include them in the coalition. And I do think Reform. I think the surge could be temporary. If it's not, they win 400 seats next time the House of Commons goes up to election. Like, you could have said the same thing. Oh yeah, I think the labor surge is. I don't think the labor surge is going to continue for 2 years. Back in 2022, like, oh yeah, the House of Commons will be elected all the way in 2024. One says in 2022, oh, conservatives will take back the lead. Oh, they'll change their leader, which for some reason, they changed their leader twice, which means they should have gotten the double boost that Mark Carney got and won like 800 seats. The Ecos poll showed conservatives winning Runcorn Helsby, another random constituency that has nothing important happening anytime soon, and had nothing important happen just a few hours ago. But I think Reform. I'm gonna guess that they go down from this. I think this is unsustainable, and I don't think Nigel Farage is the best at managing now a caucus of like 700 counselors, probably more by the time the night is over. Because so far, here he's won 586. Here he's won nearly 100 more than that. So probably 800 counselors or so. Um, I'm not sure how he can manage that. Like, he's probably going to kick out 80% of them by Tuesday. But it makes you wonder what happens in 2026, because here you can see it, but there were certain elections delayed, specifically so that Reform wouldn't win. Those, I mean, you can have them up in 2027, like, oh yeah, we'll just never have elections here in the places Reform would win. But like, if Reform can keep this surge, if Reform is still leading in the polls, in 2026, and they outperform them again, which is a fucking insane proposition that Reform outperforms the polls. Like, that has never happened before. Um, like, you might think, oh, I'm making a no, legitimately, that has never happened before. But if they can continue this, like, Reform legitimately will cement themselves as the front runners for the 2029 UK general election. And I don't know how Keir Starmer responds to this. I think the biggest result of this, though, was here. The Runcorn and Helsby by-election. Reform UK was able to flip here. Flip the seat here by 6 votes. What an ending to such a tumultuous campaign, but a seat that Labour won by 34.8% all the way back in 2024. A seat here, like, if you're looking across this map for like, oh yes, where's Reform's next seat? It's technically their fifth seat because Rupert Lowe was expelled from the caucus for bullshit reasons. But where is Reform's sixth seat? Like, you might say, oh yes, it'll be around Nigel Farage's seat. They'll win a new seat here. See, look, they're well, that's conservatives. Yeah, Reform was really not efficient at all with their votes here. But like here, maybe they'll win some of these seats here. Maybe some more of the working class seats across the great United Kingdom. Like you're not going to pick a seat that Labour got 52, 53% of the vote in 2024, but partially due to the scandal of the incumbent MP or the former incumbent MP punching a random guy on the street and having to resign for that, and partially due to the fact that this is a very working class area. Like there's some rural areas on the outskirts of here that were relatively divided between Reform and Conservatives, but it's also a very working class area. Reform was able to flip this. By the way, you're seeing that right. The Conservatives nearly went behind the Greens. They're at 7.2% here. Like they already put up a pathetic performance here in 2024, but 7%. Like I thought at worst they might get like 12%. Oh no, they went down by 4%. They lost half their voters. What a what a night. But yeah, you have to wonder if you're you know, Labor, conservative, especially Labor. But also all these seats are conservative leaning, so ooh, that's gonna be fun. All those 4,500 counselors are shaking in their bootstraps right now. But you have to wonder what happens next, because if this surge from Reform at all continues, like it's not going to end too well. Like this is legitimately one of the greatest nights. For Farage has been in politics for a while, and like I I would say before this, his greatest night was obviously the 2016 Brexit referendum, but like legitimately how humiliated everyone but Reform is, how Reform outperformed the polls, how Reform like this is as close as a mandate, as close to a mandate as you can get from local elections. Like legitimately, I think this is the greatest night of his career. In a better way than Brexit, because I think he's a piece of shit that doesn't care about Brexit, but also because like this is exactly what Reform could have wanted and more. And now you move into more elections, like I said, a random choice, Northeast Somerset and Hanham, where the incumbent, coincidentally also, and this is like actually a coincidence, um, the mayor of the west of England, Dan Norris. I wonder where I've heard that name before, but he is probably going to resign for not very nice things to kids. This is a seat that conservatives should pick up in a by-election, and it'll be relatively soon. But legitimately, like you have to worry for conservatives. Like they were at 24% of the popular vote, um, when they got 30% here. Like if they're at 15, even if they're at 20% of the popular vote, like you have to do the math. Like, oh, if they go down to 25%, 10 points from Reform, and I think that Labor probably ends up losing this by-election. I mean, even over Reform, they won this by 26. Reform flipped the seat where they won by almost 10 points more than that. Like, I think Labor's out of this as conservative versus Reform by-election, but like, you have to worry if you're conservatives. Like, the gap, even if the gap were closed between Reform and conservatives, like a 10-point swing, like then you have to wonder, oh, okay, and you got to think about the local effects. But like, it's not just that. Reform has gone from like 10 points behind the conservatives to like honestly probably like 8 points ahead of them if the election were held today. Like that is legitimately a contender for Reform's seventh seat, which is also their sixth seat because they expelled a random person from their caucus for the. I mean, he wanted to be leader, but like everyone wants to be leader of Reform UK. They're at 30% in the polls. I don't know why Nigel Farage is such a. Oh my god! Why do populist movements have to have the worst leaders? But legitimately, you gotta wonder with these by elections because I mean, I'm not going to be someone who's like, oh, yes, I believe the Find Out Now poll that has Reform at 400 seats in the House of Commons. But, like, almost any seat that goes to a by-election now, especially if reform after this phenomenon surges anymore. Like, you have to ask the question about any seat in the House of Commons. Like, can reform actually win this seat? Is there a chance that reform can, in a by election, pick off any seat that Labor or even the Conservatives hold? I mean, honestly, probably the safest MPs are the Liberal Democrats. That's such a dumb idea that, like, the entire Labor caucus is under threat, but the Liberal Democrats are safe. I love UK politics. It's the dumbest shit imaginable. But yeah, not a great performance for Conservatives. A horrible performance for Keir Starmer. An indictment on his leadership. He's gone from 34% projected nationally, which, mind you, was pretty accurate. Now down to 20%. If these projected vote shares are anywhere close to the final result, Nigel Farage, or whichever Muslim he chooses to replace him, will more than likely be prime minister. And before that, they'll take over every bit of local government in the United Kingdom. And they'll head into the 2029 local, 2029 House of Commons elections with a caucus of 25. How many taxi cabs is that? But anyways, thank you for watching. This was a fun election to cover. Soon we will be covering the Australia elections. I, by the time you're seeing this video, I'm making plans because it's 4 a.m. 4 a.m. May 3rd. It's it's gonna be something trying to stream that. But who knows? I might make a final prediction video that comes out later today. Uh, but this was a fun election to cover. Thank you for joining me along the ride for this election. And we have some more foreign elections. Australia should be the end for like a week, but we have a lot happening at once. So thank you for watching. Godspeed. Testers done out.